Jerry Hughes interview, who was previously installed in our Hall of Honor program. And for the interview that we're going to do today, we've brought from the Hall of Honor board Terry Jewell, Barry Trout, Bob Overstreet, and Wayne Lowry. And Jerry's been kind enough to give us some time here in Chico at the Park and Recreation District office. And with that, Jerry,
and
you would
real quickly,
yourself?
it's November 9th, 2016 at roughly 11 o'clock.
Well, as it's already been stated, my name is Jerry Hughes. I was born January the 29th, 1931 in Michigan. And I arrived in California when I was about 12 years old. My dad did not serve in the service, but he was actually drafted as a tool and die maker machinist during the Second World War, and that was an important element to have. Anyway, he called me. I was boarded out with my siblings. I had a sister and 2 brothers. Well, he was getting located here, and he phoned us one day and said, we're going to be moving to some place in California called Valley Joe. Because where he was assigned was to Mare Island. My education's basically Berkeley High School, and I graduated from Berkeley High in 1950. I then enlisted into the Coast Guard after I graduated, and spent 3 years in the Coast Guard in various places. The last was Alaska, and that was an interesting assignment. Of course, then I benefited from the GI Bill of Rights, went to the San Jose State College, graduated in 1957, and during my time in college, I spent a lot of time working in the recreation field, which I had never done before, with the city of San Jose, and I did a whole variety of things. The recreation leader, I was a day camp counselor, I was a Little League umpire, I was a high school basketball official. All of this connected with the city of San Jose. When I graduated, a position opened up with the city of San Jose, and I was selected to become a recreation supervisor. I spent a little over 2 years with the city of San Jose, and a superintendent of recreation opened up at the city of Sunnyvale. I was fortunate to be selected to get that position, and then I spent 9 years with the city of Sunnyvale. By the next assignment, I was selected to be the first director for the city of Santa Cruz County, and spent 4 years there before leaving there and coming to Chico. When I came to Chico, we were housed in an office north of town here. And one of the first things the board of directors shared with me was that they had some property, which is the property we're here, and that they had designated that they wanted to do a recreation center. I had worked very closely with John Sue, who is a landscape architect. I don't know whether you know John Sue at all or not. And I did in Sunnyvale and in Santa Cruz County. He did a major project, his firm did a major project for us in Santa Cruz County. Anyway, John had done some women's work.
Was Rivera with Sue then?
Pardon?
Was Rivera with Sue then?
They had split.
They'd split.
By that time. But originally it was Rivera and Sue, correct. Yeah, but they had split. So anyway, I knew John pretty well. He had done some minimal work for the district, so our board of directors were familiar with him. John had a brother who was an architect, and they'd both been in business maybe 25 years, but they'd never done a project together. And John said he'd like to join with his brother and take this. They did a model to show the board what they would do of this facility. And the board said they wanted to go along with them, the two brothers. Just so happened, I also worked with a guy in Sunnyvale who was the chief building inspector for the city of Sunnyvale. And he happened to move up to a town just outside of Paradise called Magalia. And so he and I'd have lunch with him once in a while together because of our relationship. Well, when you have a big project like this, you need somebody to oversee it. And so when we had lunch one day, I said, I really need your help. And I offered to employ him and proceeding to oversee this project being built. Unfortunately, his wife had just passed away maybe 3 months before. So he wasn't comfortable about doing that yet. So that weekend, I get a phone call from his son. And they said, we are talking to our dad and we need him to take this job. Because he needs it. So he came aboard. So that was part of the group that was involved in doing this project. And we went out to bid, had good bids, and you see the results of that experience. But the reason I bring up those names is because I've always been very fortunate to have resources available to me. And this was an example of that. And I always prided myself in the fact that I was lucky to have those kind of resources available.
What other, who other resources, or what other resources?
Well, I was going to go on to, I'm jumping to the kinds of, as I said, there was very little in Chico in the way of neighborhood parks and things. They had the huge 2,000+ acre Bidwell Park. And whenever you talked about other parks, what do you mean? You got 2,000 acres here. Well, gradually that changed. And we got very much involved with the city of Chico. And then a number of things started to happen, including the next thing I'll talk about, maybe another project, just to give you an idea of working jointly in the community. I developed a very close relationship with the city of manager. His name was Fred Davis. And he'd been city manager for many years here. And it just so happened that a developer decided to donate 13 acres of this next to a school, Chapman School, out on the south side of town. It just so happened that adjacent to that 13 acres, there was a man who worked for, who had 20 acres. But he didn't have the opportunity to develop it because he was landlocked. So within the city. But I said, gee whiz, maybe I could work out something with him. And so I went to Fred Davis, the city manager, and I shared my interest in wanting to work with it. He said, no, what do you know? We got 3 acres surplus property from doing the overpass over the freeway on 20th Street, which was about 2 blocks away from there. And so he said, we could put that 3 acres together and we take 3 acres off the 13 acres that was dedicated to us, and let's offer the 6 acres, which are commercial property, to this gentleman who has the 20 acres. And he said, that's a good idea. And so that's what we did. So we ended up having 30+ acres of land to do a community park, which was the largest park in this area except for Bidwell Park. So that's how we worked that out. And all I'm saying is, I go back to knowing to have resources and how lucky I was to be able to establish that type of relationship with school districts and cities and county and everything. So that's, from my point of view, that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would only insert that, those resources had to have something to do with your ability to identify them and nurture them,
Well,
to make
that's-
it work.
I
They
think
just
that's-
didn't happen.
No, I've always felt that I could relate to people, and that's been one of my fortes,
Yeah.
really. But all of you have done that, right? That's why you stayed in Park and Recreation. But, so.
What's the name of that park? Is there a name?
Community park, it's,
Community
and
park.
because there's one other element in that I want to just discuss, because it gets back to this. Okay, there was a gentleman who worked for a major agriculture group in town. He was also very active in youth soccer, and we didn't have any good facilities for soccer. They were in elementary schools and junior highs, and they were just spread all over town. So we were at a meeting one day, and he said, "You got a plan for that park, a landscape plan for the park?" Well, I was working with another group, the Rose Anderson Road Engineering Firm, and they were very helpful in different things. They designed a landscape grading plan for the 38 plus acres. And this guy said, "Well," he said, "we're gonna be done with our rice fields not too long now. I'm gonna bring my," then he didn't charge us anything. So there's another time where, like you just got through saying, it's important to develop associations with people. And you never know when they're gonna be there to help you.
Right.
Never know. And there was a situation where that was pretty costly to come in with all of this equipment and grade that 30 acres.
Oh, yeah.
Gratis. So that's that story,
You started in '72 here?
yeah.
Okay.
In an office north of town, actually, we shared it with another group. And that was my first experience.
Now, Larry Seifert was up here. Larry Seifert,
Larry was here.
but he left in the mid-'60s sometime.
Yeah, he left. Then there was another, I don't know whether there was one or two people between Larry Seifert and
And when
me.
you came in, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And Seifert went to Sacramento area?
The Pharaohs.
Faro?
Perhaps, yeah, I think so. I don't know.
He was
for
my
sure.
first
Yeah,
boss.
Yeah, but I know he was down in Sacramento area, so,
Right.
yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of my getting involved with the CARD, Chico Recreation Park District.
Mhm.
One of the,
While you're in that vein,
What?
while you're in that area, who were some of your early staff? Do you recall names?
I'll throw some, Bill Kehoe, does that ring a bell? Okay, Bill Kehoe, in fact, Bill Kehoe is also a partner in me in our cabin up in the Tahoe area. So we're still involved personally together.
Mhm.
So we had Bill Kehoe was one of the staff. I can't think who was my assistant. His name doesn't come to me right now because he
Mhm.
left shortly after. But him, then we had a bookkeeper and a secretary, and that was it. And we had some maintenance people.
Right.
And so that was very important. And just a real quick, before I took the job, I went out and interviewed a lot of people, and particularly the maintenance people. And the board had a different attitude about maintenance staff. I don't know why, but they did. And if a piece of equipment broke down, they blamed it on the crew. Well, they were using the equipment. And during the interview, I brought that up. And do you remember Dale Swire?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Dale actually sat in on the interview. He didn't interview me.
Mhm.
He and I were very close because we went through college together. So Dale,
Where was Dale at that time?
he was on the staff at the college.
Okay.
Yeah, he was, so anyway, I did bring that up to the board that, you know, we're gonna have to change attitudes. So after the interview that Dale sat through, and I was staying with him, and he says, "You're not gonna get that job." But I did. Okay. Yes, now you're going through, okay?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, you've kind of
but
taken
like-
care of the first
Yeah.
part in terms of
Yeah.
background, but
Yeah.
in terms of the
Yeah.
career path and work history, you've touched
Yeah.
on some of it.
Well,
Mentors, did you have when you were kind of formulating your outlook on?
that's where I was going to next. Okay, when, there's two people that really impressed me, who were in the field. I don't know whether you've heard of Everett Lyda or not. Everett was the number 2 person at San Jose. But he was more than the number 2 person. In fact, he was really the number 1 person, in my opinion. Because the director was more politically oriented. Ev was right there with the staff and you know, he was a humble person. He had worked for the YMCA. You know, now we're in transition, right? From YMCA and stuff like that, where people were coming into the field. This is 1957. That's a lot. Anyway, he was a very humble person.
Who was the director, Renfrey?
Who?
Reg Renfrey?
No, can't think of his name right now, but he was, no, it was, he'd come out of the service and was hired as a director, but I don't know, I can't remember his name.
So Renfrey was later?
Who?
Reg Renfrey was after this?
This is at City of San Jose,
Huh? San Jose?
Oh, you're talking about San Jose. I think,
Yeah.
excuse me, I think you were talking about
Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Oh.
Okay, okay.
City of San
Okay.
Jose, Parks and Recreation.
Yeah. One of the things that I picked up from him is that all of the staff needs to be recognized, and he was terrific with it, to just do that. The thing, you know, this is a sidelight, you know, but one of the things to remember, he was kind of crippled up a little bit, but he was a fantastic handball player. And and at one point, he said, "You got 1 point to get, Hughes." And I couldn't get it. He was so good at that handball. But, so, you know, little things to remember about people. And the other person I'd like to mention, maybe you guys remember him, was Bob Stevens. Bob Stevens was the assistant city manager at Sunnyvale, had been the Parks and Recreation director, and then went to be a assistant city manager. Then he became city manager in Delano, and then ultimately became city manager in Campbell. And that was the last. But those two people, I thought were, I learned a lot from them. It's beyond just the daily chores that we go through, but just the way they handled people. It just impressed me, and I tried to emulate them. Hopefully I was somewhat successful.
So, once you came to Chico, I mean, this is a success story. What are some of the other things that you look back on your career and were either
Well, yeah.
instrumental with or
Well,
part of? Or,
before I came to Chico, I was working in Santa Cruz. I was the first Parks and Recreation Director for the county, city of Santa Cruz. And I was housed in with the planning department. That's where John Sue comes in, because, and that was 1968. The state of California had dictated that all counties had to do land use plan. One of the things that was on the list of things that the Board of Supervisors charged me with when I came was to do a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space study. The Planning Commission was mostly realtors, people in that type of thing. the planning director came to me shortly after I attended, is you've got this responsibility, you've got to do a park, recreation, open space study. I want you to work with us and use it to make this responsibility that the state is putting on it. And we're gonna have you carry the ball, and through your commission, not the planning commission. And everybody agreed with that, except the planning commission.
Of course.
So that's where John Sue came involved, when we hired him and his firm to do that study. And that was about a year and a half, so that's in line with what you were talking about. Also in Santa Cruz, I'll pass this around, but this is the picture of this building in the 1850s, 60s, 70s. That's and the one here, the octagon one, is the recorder, the county recorder's office. And the big building next to it was the county building.
If you're one of the 55 million Americans
This is what they did to
who
that
for work and don't track your
building
business.
during the time. Added that abutment to it. Okay, but that was a historic building. But I was very fortunate. I was able to get a grant from the Historical Society back in Washington, whatever that was called. The first one they rejected, the first one I sent in. And they said that, some of you were familiar with being in Washington DC? Do they have any brick buildings? So when you're dealing with that group, and they say, how many more brick buildings do you want us to fund? Well, so I got a hold of this landscape guy. His name was Francis Palm, and he's from Monterey, and he's a historical architect. He worked in Williamsport, and back in the east. Okay, and anyway, we decided that we had two firms, and he was all by himself, and then we had another firm with Dog and Pony Show and all of that. So we selected him with a board of supervisor with me when we made the decision. And anyway, his name is Francis Palm, and he said, "I'll get us a grant," and he did to fund remodeling and taking all that. And back to this here, and this is a picture of it today. I'm up here.
Nice.
Okay, now, remember, and then the building, I said the building next door, no, they had a new county building that they built, so this, do you remember the Loma Prieta earthquake? Well, that building there was destroyed, and this building is still there today, because when we rehabbed it, we made it earthquake proof. All through this man, Francis Palm, and his expertise. So again, you know, you're lucky when you got the type of thing. And I really do, I emphasize that because I really feel that I've been very, very fortunate over my career to be able to work with those kind of people. So that's when you ask any other, there's one. So we've negotiated, I was on the board here for 1 4-year term. During that time, we negotiated with the city, and they wanted us to take over their parks. And so we worked out a memorandum of understanding with them, and we took over about 4 or 5. During that period of time, now, between 2000, I was on the board in 2006 to 2012, so it's a long way from 1972. So things have happened, and the city did get involved with building parks and that. But the theory was CARD should be in the Parks and Recreation business, and the city didn't have to be if we've got this district. So we took over a whole, probably about 5 neighborhood type parks from them during that period of time. And Fred Davis was still the city manager at that time, and he has since passed away though. So there again, and I voted against one of them. It was the skate parks, and so I said we shouldn't take it, but the board decided to do it. But it was just my. Let's see, where were we?
We're probably
doing good.
We're doing great. We're probably down around
Yeah.
10 or 11, 12,
One
somewhere
of
in
the
there.
things you asked about, this is not Parks and Recreation now. See, I told you, after I graduated from high school, I enlisted in the Coast Guard. And one of the questions you guys, I don't know why you selected it, but you said, at what point in your life did you have a risk situation develop? Well, if you're in the Coast Guard, if you're assigned to a ship up in Alaska, and I don't know how many of you ever visited lighthouses or have any exposure to them, but if you're up in Alaska, and you gotta remember now, this is 1950, 1951, 1952. The amenities that the Coast Guard managed, light facilities, Loran stations, things of that nature, they had people assigned to those facilities. So for instance, there was probably 20 lighthouses up in Alaska. And so each one of those, sometimes on a rock as big as this thing. And you have 3 people assigned, and they're there for a year. That's their assignment. And they're on this rock, they have this light, they have to maintain it. Okay, one of them was called Cape Hensenbrook. And when you serviced it, you had they had a big boom up on this cliff, and the light was up on and the facility was up on this cliff. But the way they got their supplies is we took them out in our ship, which was I was on, and then you had a motor launch that would load up with supplies. You put the supplies into a cargo net. And you had this boom come down, and the motor launch would come in out of the swell, and then you'd hook on to the boom, and then they'd load their stuff up, take it up, and then they'd put it down, and we'd come in with another load. Well, this one time, I'm in this boat, and the cargo net threw me off into the water. Of course, I had at that time life jacket. And one of the guys in the boat grabbed me and pulled me back in. That's a risk. But that's a demonstration of it. But that's totally, again, it was the only real time I can ever remember being really scared.
So again, it's about who you knew.
Yeah, it's a good thing you did it. A good thing he liked me, huh?
That was building a relationship quick.
Yeah. So that's, that's an experience I thought of it.
Let's explore a little bit the relationship between the district and the city over the years.
Yeah.
And how has that evolved?
Well, like I said, real quick. Fred Davis was known to be really a good city manager. He was the chief engineer before he became city manager. But he had an attitude in town that it was, he's a hard guy to get along with. And my wife, right after we knew, she was in a sewing club, and she had a lady there, and she wanted to know what her husband did. And she said, and my wife said, well, he's Parks and Recreation general manager. And this lady says, does he work for the city? No, he's separate from the city. Well, is she going to have to work with the city? She says, yeah. She did. well, he better be careful about this guy called Fred Davis. I made tremendous, I mean, we've got along real well, but, and the city relationship were really good at that time. They're pretty good now, but we used to have joint meetings where we had the county, school district, CARD, and the city. And once a month we met and talked about our need to work together. And it was terrific. I don't think they're doing that anymore, but at the time it was kind of addressing your, it was a planned relationship that you did, and it worked out terrifically. I knew I could go to Fred Davis anytime I wanted, and if I made a good proposal, he'd support it in working. So I think at the present time, there's still pretty good relationships, but
Jerry, do you know why there were two organizations in the first place? Why the city just didn't provide the Parks and Recreation?
well, you gotta go all the way back to when special districts were created throughout the state. I think it was in 1948 that this district was formed.
Okay.
And
But the city already existed.
usually
at that time, right?
it's developed, because the community apparently felt that the city wasn't providing enough
Okay.
recreation and parks. That's usually the way the special districts got, and we're totally in the city. All of our parks that we've worked on and developed, we've got a another community, big one out north of town. But all of our facilities are within the city limits, except for the one that's gonna be annexed in by the city. It's out here in Chapman, called Chapman Town. But,
Does the district boundaries coterminous with the city, or?
district boundaries for CARD are 225 square miles plus. Now, that's just when they created it. It goes all the way out to Sacramento River, it's exactly the same as the school district, except for a little community of Cohasset and another one up, I can't think of the name right now. But the basic is that we're basically within the city limits is where we really function. So that's kind of answering your
Right.
question. But why they chose that big old area, but then in 1948, city of Chico's probably 20,000.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, and when you're 20,000, your sales tax is probably very limited, and so when they started talking about parks and recreation needs in the community,
Mhm.
let's do a special district rather than have the city
Right.
do it.
So speaking of taxes, in the late 70s, after Proposition 13 passed, what happened between the city and the district with regard
Well,
to taxes?
Prop 13. City managers, you guys, me, we tried to get it so it wouldn't be passed, right? And then when it was passed, special districts and the cities and that said, we said to the state, don't do anything. Let whatever it's gonna do happen. But the state went ahead and created special district funding.
Mhm.
And then I had to deal with all of the special districts in Butte County and determine how we were going to split up that special district fund. And I put together a proposal, took it to the meeting, everybody accepted. In other words, the other fire districts and the mosquito abatement districts and whoever. And I put together this proposal and everybody felt it was fair, the way it was gonna be distributed. And we got the funds every year, channeled through the county. All right, you guys, I don't know, maybe you didn't, So anyway, everybody, like I said, and then I went home that night and I turned on the television, and the fire chief, it was a special district fire chief up in Paradise, was on, and he was saying, the special districts fund should not be going to all of those other districts. Fire district should get it. Well, I went to the TV station and I said, how come you're letting this guy get on? He just voted to approve it. And so they took it off. And then the county board of supervisors approved it, and that's how we followed the plan, and now that's not any longer available.
Right.
Yeah, but
That was a tough time.
yeah, it was. I think it was probably 10+ years, and then it went away.
ERAF.
Just a little, a little bit of. One of the things you guys asked is, did you have any heroes or anything? And I picked two when I was very young, and you probably don't even know the names. Al Kaline and Hank Greenberg.
Baseball.
Huh?
Detroit Tigers?
Detroit Tigers.
Yes, you got it.
Al Kaline.
And that's, okay, but there's even one that was much more important. And it was my high school counselor. And she called me into her office when I'm not probably maybe a junior, maybe. She said, you're really not functioning the way you should. And I want to change you from college prep to business. And they had those tracks in those days, remember? College prep, business, and workshop. And so she said, I wanted to change to sign you. And she laid out a program for me. And I think the fact that she did that made me understand how I could be in business and be a Parks and Recreation administrator. Just because I had to have typing, had to learn about budgets. They made you go downtown and work in the stores to learn how to deal with customers. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I still ended up going to college. And I was one of the few people that knew how to type in my classes, so I could type my reports. So I don't know why I really focus on her, but boy, she's one of my heroes.
Who were some of your, not heroes, but maybe just peers, especially in District 2? Who was it when you were working here as general manager, would you meet with, and what other names might we recognize, the people in the area?
Well, let me answer that this way, if I could. So what's it, 15? Okay, what I say here is Parks and Recreation professionals I have had the good fortune to be able to associate with. So I can't pinpoint an individual, but I think the broad spectrum of all of the people being involved in CPRS. I had close relationships with a lot of people. One of them, Dick Conselman would be an example. Charlie Hafer would be another example. Just 2 names. Why did those pop into my head? And the other is my dad, because I was the oldest, and he challenged me, and so that was good. Let's see. One of the things, anybody want to throw something at me?
Well, What kind of honors and awards have you received? What,
Well, the two big ones are the big ones in our profession, the CPRS Fellowship Award, and the one you're here about, the Honors Award for District 2. I think they of course are the two highest that you can receive, isn't? I mean, maybe there's others, but I've worked in so many different agencies, and you know, I have a lot of plaques from. After I retired, I went to Salinas and worked there for twice while they were looking for.
interim?
Yeah, and of course, I guess I did okay because they said thank you.
So,
But I also paid me.
right. So you were kind of isolated up here. I mean,
Yeah,
in District
right,
2,
yeah.
you know, you guys are always having to
But
come down there and stuff, but you got very involved with CPRS. What kinds of things have you done? I mean,
Well-
I know some of the answers. but-
Well, if you think about it, you know, earlier on I said, you know, we had CRS, right?
Right.
Well, originally, all of our operations were in Fresno.
Oh, I remember that.
That's right.
Charles
Yeah.
Wrights.
And I was on the board at that time. And so that was probably when I was in Santa Cruz. And I'd drive over with Donahue, remember Donahue? And I'd pick him up down in Watsonville or in that area, and then we'd drive across to Fresno. During that period of time when I was on the board, we started talking about, it doesn't make any sense to be in Fresno. We need to be where the action is. And that's when we started the movement. It probably took us a couple of years to finally get it all together, because we had some people who were really good that worked for us as employees in Fresno. You know, the director and the secretary there, they were
They're good people.
yeah, really, but we knew that was gonna affect them if we made the move. And they finally said, move.
Yeah.
What was her
And we
name?
did. What?
What was her name? I was trying to think of her name as
Yeah.
you're talking. I can picture her, but I can't.
Yeah, I can't, names, I'm
Yeah.
terrible with names. But that was a big move, but it paid off, it really did pay off for us. We were much more active in the political arena once we got to Sacramento, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And and ultimately, we went through some people in the directorship, and then we ended up with Jane. And that was, of course, the best move we've ever made.
That's good. Who was the director in Paradise when you were here?
When I was here with Harvey,
Not Harvey Roth.
Harvey Roth.
Yeah, he since passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, shoot,
Terry Ashford.
yeah.
Did I'm gonna go off a little bit here, but when CPRS was in Fresno,
Yeah.
the NRPA had a regional office in Fresno also.
Well, they
Charlie
did,
Wright,
and
did
they-
you work closely with the
Yeah,
NRPA at that
in
time?
fact, you got a name, who's the man?
Charlie Wrights?
Charlie Wrights.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie Wrights and I were great buddies.
Oh,
Can't remember his name, but he's still good. I mean, we really did hit it off real well. And he moved his operation to Sacramento, and he was there for, many years, and then I guess now they've moved it up to Seattle, haven't they?
yes.
And up there, I
Yeah.
think.
Sure were.
Yeah, Jane Addams actually replaced Charlie when he retired.
Jane did, no?
Yeah, she did, working for NRPA.
Oh, did she?
And then
For a
that's
little
how
while.
she led to the
Oh, then she
CPRS.
came to.
Yeah, she was there
oh, I
about 3
didn't know
years.
that.
They were in the same League of Cities office,
Oh, no, yeah, they were, yeah.
NRPA and CPRS.
Yeah, that was in
And then Jane
Sacramento.
just, right, and just
Yeah.
Jane moved over.
Yeah.
That's where I really got to know Charlie Rice real well.
Then Pam Earl replaced Jane with NRPA, and that's when they moved her to Seattle.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
So, and I haven't heard, I think they didn't.
Well, didn't we hired the gal to replace Jane, didn't we, from Seattle?
Yes.
Huh?
No,
No, from
Colorado.
Stephanie.
Oh,
Colorado,
Colorado.
Stephanie,
Yeah. But so I was involved in a lot of that movement. Like I said, I was served on the board
Yeah.
for a while, and then I went through the chairs.
Do you remember what year you were president of CPRS?
That was 1982,
82.
yeah. And they still had we went in for 4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Were you ever on the board of District 2?
No. No, I was on the board of District 4 when I was in Sunnyvale.
Uh-huh.
But I was I was on a number of committees.
Uh-huh.
John Williams.
Right.
Yeah,
Davis.
yeah, yeah. We were great. He was also one of the people who, we actually built that cabin up in Tahoe
I remember that.
together. He's down in Southern California now.
What do you like best about your life so far?
Well, let me read this. I mean, I really, like I said, the fact that I was able to, I was gonna be in teaching. When I went to college, I was gonna be a teacher. And then I got all this involvement with the recreation
Right.
on a part-time basis. And I think that transition was the best thing that could happen to me. And so that's, the other thing is that one of the things I didn't say, and I should have, was your question number 7. But, and I just want to emphasize it.
Memorable moments?
Huh?
Your most memorable moments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it happened in 1994. I married my wife. Excuse me. But we've had 60+ good years together.
That's special.
That's special.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
San Jose State.
Okay. So,
Yeah, in a folk dance class.
What a serious. What are your recreation classes?
But she knew my family because her girlfriend, they lived in, my dad and I wasn't involved in at that time in the family. I was still in the family, but I wasn't living there. But they lived in San Leandro, and her best girlfriend lived across the street from my family. And so she knew my brothers and my sister. And so she knew who I was,
Right.
but I didn't know her. And because she had that relationship with my family. And then I met her at San Jose State, and then we did folk dancing together, and then we got married.
So she tracked you down. She knew you signed up for the folk dance class.
You know,
She snuck in there and.
You don't know how true that statement you made.
That's what I would.
And she admits it.
And Jerry, what is your wife's full name?
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen?
Mary Ellen. She goes by both, and it's
I
two
remember
separate
it, Mary
names.
Ellen.
Yeah.
Did she work?
Yeah, she did variety thing. Most of the time she was a homebody until our kids got growing and out of the house. And then she worked at Mervin's and things like that.
How'd she feel about you dragging her up to Chico after living in the Bay Area? Okay, that's what I thought.
That's a very embarrassing question.
Oh, okay, I withdraw it.
No, it'll be real quick. I'll be real quick. Now, Santa Cruz is a really nice place, and it
Beautiful
was
place.
really nice when we were
Back
there.
then, yeah.
And in the summertime, we found a house that's just unbelievable up there when we moved from Sunnyvale to there. And anyway, when you're in Santa Cruz in the summertime, you have fog.
Oh, right.
You know, so we lived out of the fog belt, and so whenever she went shopping, she had to grab a sweater. And, you know, so, now, the reason I bring that up is that was the biggest problem in moving to Chico, because when you move to Chico in August,
Toasty.
there's a real big change that takes place.
Don't you though?
And we didn't even have air conditioning in our car.
Oh, yeah, okay. The fog becomes
So
a memory.
that was a real, and plus leaving that house, because the kids loved it and we loved it, but we were, Santa Cruz is starting to have some changes, and in the high school that our son went to, they were having some things with drugs and stuff.
Right.
So we just made, when this job opened up, I applied for it. So we made the move, then we've been here since '72, so we aren't going anyplace. And we made, all of our kids made the adjustment, and they're all doing fine, and that's what I say though, you can't, it's too often, and I'm sure you people have the same experience, but your family comes first, right? And then your job comes second.
Right.
But your job can sometimes interfere with
Oh,
that
big time,
relationship
yeah.
with the family. And we did it wasn't a struggle, I almost used that word. But we did everything we could to make sure that my job allowed me to also participate with my family.
Yeah, minimize the sacrifices.
Yeah, and we were an outdoor family, and they still are. We still have that same relationship. Real quick, because we just had 20-plus people up at the mouth of the Klamath River in the last summer. All of our families coming together.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we still do it.
Was it foggy?
No, it wasn't.
You got
Were the
lucky
steelhead
there.
running?
Clear, huh?
Were the steelhead running?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a couple of 2-3 fishermen in the group. Yeah, they did okay.
How many
But-
grandchildren do you have now? Trick question.
Yeah, I don't know. My wife.
Plus or minus?
No, but we've got at least 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we've got some great grandchildren too.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's good, but they're great. And they all live, the children all live with Orland, Magalia, Chico, who am I leaving out? Oh, Redding. So we're
Oh, pretty close.
we're all very close, yeah, and doing well. And our youngest daughter and her husband, we're married right here in this thing, but they didn't think they were going to have kids, and then all of a sudden, 10 or some years ago, they told us they were going to have a child. Now, that child is now a freshman at Orland High School. And so Grandma and Grandpa have that association that we wouldn't have, because our other next grandchild is 25 years old.
Right.
So you got a
Right.
distinction of a 12-year-old and a 25. But what that did is gave Grandma and Grandpa an opportunity to be back involved with the
Yeah, that's cool.
tremendous.
Yeah,
All
You
good
have to
stuff.
break out the,
What?
you have to break out the folding chairs again.
Yes, so when we have Thanksgiving, which is coming up, it's a madhouse.
You have it at your house?
Pardon?
You have it at your house? Where do you have Thanksgiving?
At our house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a crowd, but it's fun. Fun.
Do you have something that you reflect back on and say, I wish that hadn't happened, some big disappointment in your life?
Yeah, no, I'm really disappointed in this community.
Really?
Yeah. We have 2 bathtubs for pools that were built in the 50s and the early 60s. And one of them, the board actually decided not to operate this last summer. And the other one is next to a junior high, and the maximum depth is 3.5 feet.
Hmm.
That's the extent of aquatic facilities in Chico.
What's the population now?
80 plus, maybe.
That
But
is,
not, that's the city limits, and then you got everything beyond it outside.
yeah,
So that is my biggest disappointment.
I can see why.
And we just finished the second study, and the board we got it done just here in the last maybe 3 months, and we finished the study. And it's all laid out, and the design and the whole bit, and they just can't seem to get the. Now, the school district and the junior college put major issues on the ballot yesterday, and both of them passed without any problem at all.
Right.
And they were huge. One was 190 million, and the other at the school district, I forget what and so that's my biggest disappointment, is we just, in this community, and they have swim teams that having to just go to different places, and we just really need it bad. I've done trips all over, down to your places, to Fulton,
Yeah.
Brentwood, they all got terrific facilities, we don't. So that's my biggest disappointment. And I really think that, and I'm still bothering the board, trying to, I was on the committee that,
For the design?
but I'm hopeful that before my time gets up, I'm 85 years old.
Oh, man.
So,
But you know, people live forever these days, you know.
yeah,
this-
well, and they have a large swim group here. I mean, and it's not just for competition. It's gotta be for community, and that's why,
Well, you're near the river, you've got these swimming holes here on the creek and stuff. I
That-
mean, people
see
drown
that-
if they don't know how to swim.
yes, that's the reason we need.
Yeah.
And we have city property that we've had when I was the general manager, that the city has said that's good. And right across the street from that city property is the newest junior high school, which could use it
Yeah,
for their physical
right.
education
Right.
and water safety. That's the kind of thing you're talking about.
Right. Too many opportunities to drown,
Huh? Oh.
and you need to get them water safe.
Yep, so that's one but I'm still trying to get it moved. They're just now in the process of revisiting their master plan, which I was involved with, and when I was on the board. But that's the big one.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked it, because I'm hopeful that we can move it along.
Well, you seem to be passionate about it, that's for sure.
Yes.
I was gonna say that you've covered a lot of material, and I was looking at some of the more theoretical, reflective type things that we had down for questions, and you've even answered some of those as well. But a couple, would there be anything you'd do differently in your life in terms of your career? Is this pretty much how you dialed it in?
Yeah, I just had a terrific career, and so and like I said, I'm still involved. to
Still
some
staying engaged?
degree,
Yeah,
so-
absolutely.
So, I wouldn't do it any different than I did.
And you're doing, that's
And-
the point you're making, you're still
Yeah.
very much engaged, which is,
Yeah. And one of the things I developed an internship program when I was general manager here. And it's amazing that some of the people felt that the way I outlined it, but it was very simple. If we had an intern from Chico State, which they're required to do, they had to be involved in every aspect of our program. They had to meet with me they're usually I think 16 weeks or something. Maybe is that right? I don't remember. But they had to be with me for a while. They had to be with the recreation supervisors for a period of time. They had to be out, if they were recreation oriented, they had to spend time out with the maintenance crew. And a lot of the kids, when they first came in, they were recreation. They didn't understand why they were supposed to be exposed to all this stuff. You know, they really didn't. But after we went through it, you can't remember the number of, gee whiz, I'm sure we went through it that way. And I said, oh, I'm glad to hear that. But that was the way it was done. And it was a little more detailed than that, but they had to have the broad experience. Too many of them that I had talked to in time, I did some lecturing over there at the school, but they'd go to an agency, and then the agency would put them assigned to a supervisor, and that was the extent of their experience.
Yeah.
It just never made any sense to me.
So if a young person comes to you and says, what's the key to the good life? What do I need to do? What should I be thinking about from your experiences that would help me experience that good life? You've obviously experienced it and are continuing to experience it, but what would you say to them?
And you know, a very simple statement that I made, but it has a broad application. And what it is be true to yourself and others. And then we expand on that. But you need to start, from my point of view, start with that premise. You have to like yourself, but you also have to like others. Now, sometimes that's a challenge.
Can be on some days, some hours.
But that's kind of, you know, and, but that's, I think, in talking to a
Yeah.
young person, of course, if I was sitting down with that person and we were having an interview for either a job or for them being an intern or something, I would expand a great deal. But that's
That's the main.
my thoughts. You have to be true to yourself, and then you have to be true to others. And that's the basis. Now, I don't know whether that really addresses what you were getting at.
No, I think just people, you know, without realizing it, they just kind of go through life. But
Yeah.
if somebody had actually sat down with them earlier in their life and
Yeah.
had an opportunity to ask someone who's been through it and
Yeah.
said, so what's the key to your success, Jerry? What
Yeah,
made it work for you? And
Well,
maybe it'll work for me.
If you recall early on, why did I pick my high school counselor as
Right.
somebody?
Yeah, those ended up being,
Yeah.
people
You know,
of greatest influence.
Where would I be today
Sure.
had she not really felt good about helping me?
What would you want other people to think about you? What kind of remembrance do you want to leave?
That's always a hard question, right? How do you?
It is.
How do you
It's a reflection. It's a looking
Yeah,
inside you.
I could reflect in myself.
Well, that's all. Yeah.
I think I'm somebody that if you really wanted to know something, I'd be able to either help you know or tell you that I can't help. Know your limitations. But I think I'm a person who relates to people well. Now, that's my own perspective, of course. When you guys leave, you can talk on the way and say, what's that guy all about? But that's, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
It's at some point, without being uncomfortable about it, but you pass away and we do a gravestone, and on there we have got a chance to put something that said, this was Jerry. What would you like it to say?
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because it's something that I'm actually working on now, and I haven't come to the grips with it.
Okay.
And my wife and I are, you know, we're at the age where
You think about these things.
we're really
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because I was in the service, I automatically get a plaque, if whatever.
Oh,
That-
sure.
That's, you know, that's something that, but, you know, maybe I can't answer that question because actually we are still, we're gonna be cremated, so it
Okay.
isn't, we don't need a big monster stone, you just
Right.
need a, you
You're
know.
not gonna be in the cemetery we passed on the way over.
Yeah, yeah,
One of those big
that's
headstones
what we
there.
have a number of cemeteries and stuff.
No, it's huge.
But, yeah, that's a tough one, that's a
Okay.
tough one.
Sometimes it's easier to think about it, not what you would say,
Yeah,
but somebody who's been around you and has known you for a while, if we would
Yeah.
ask that person and say,
Yeah.
if you could kind of sum up Jerry's life, what do you think of when you think of Jerry?
and
And what is that?
it depends on how long they knew me too, or no,
They knew you your
Or
whole
in what
life.
capacity?
They knew
Huh?
your whole life.
yeah.
What would they say? They knew your whole life. They had that good fortune. They say, you're still thinking about that one.
That's, you know, I actually just had a
Okay.
meeting with the VA.
Yeah.
Sorry
About a
about
month
that.
ago, that they do to ascertain what's available
Huh?
to a veteran, you know. And I got the material and we had some discussions, so, you know, it's,
Yeah.
It's
So
in the
there.
mill.
It's working. Okay. Fair enough.
Well, not to answer the question for you, but as somebody from the outside who started the profession fairly young too, so recreation leader while I was
Yeah,
in college,
yeah.
kind of stuff like you did. You were one of the people I looked to as, maybe not so much as a mentor, because we didn't have that day-to-day contact.
yeah,
But somebody who I aspired to want to be like because of what I saw you doing in the field and with CPRS and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if somebody said, Wayne, you get to pick what's on the stone,
yeah. Yeah.
what I would put on there was, he made a difference. And that's
fine.
how I feel about
That's
you.
what I was just saying.
But,
The
yeah.
Jerry Hughes that I knew,
Yeah.
persistent, and he made a difference.
Yeah.
Well, and
Maybe
gave
that's
back.
something I can work on. You gotta
Gave
help me
back.
out.
Take it from there.
Yeah.
No, he didn't just stay on the sidelines, he gave back. He got in there, he
Yeah.
jumped in the trenches, he gave up a lot of personal time, family time to help the profession, all those things.
Yeah.
And they impacted me
Yeah.
about Jerry. I mean, I have those recollections, yeah. That's very
Well,
good.
and that's, and see, I picked two people on here, Ed Lyda and Bob Stevens, and probably none of you have ever met them, I don't think. You maybe might have heard their names. But they did their thing,
Yeah.
but they really impressed me, but just because of their them being themselves and being related to me and others who I worked for. I worked for both of them.
So a question we forgot to put on here is, where can we take you to lunch?
Well, I was gonna offer to take you guys, but
Yeah, we've already made the decision.
We've
so
already
it's
made
not
the
a
decision, we're
discussion.
taking you to lunch, but you have to tell us where we're taking you
Okay,
to
well,
lunch.
let's go to, we have a very famous brewery here, Sierra Nevada.
Sierra Nevada. I
Yeah.
saw a sign that said Coors Light on the way in, but you said Sierra Nevada?
Yeah, and so that's where I was gonna take.
Okay.
If you're gonna take me, that's where I would suggest we go. Then you'd have to follow me to get there.
All right.
And it's out on 20th Street, but it's easy, so it's a real easy travel. And it's Oh, yeah, it's lunchtime.
What do you know? How'd that work out? Yeah.
So what more? But this has been, this is a nice conversation to have.
Well, that's good.
It felt good for me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
all
want to
good.
share one thing with you. Both my daughters went to Chico State.
Okay.
And just not that long ago. They're in their low 30s. Anyway, one of them is now a recreation supervisor with the city of Santa Rosa,
Santa
over
Rosa?
where Charlie Haver's at. Yeah, and she worked for CARD for a very short time.
Oh,
Mary,
did she?
Mary was the general manager. Mary,
Who was?
Mary.
Mary?
Cahill.
She didn't ask, she lasted about a year and a half.
Yeah, no.
It's funny, I mean, like I said, I just had a very good
You had a
Good run. Had a good
run
run.
here, and I don't know why some of those other people didn't hang on.
Well-
Commitment, you know,
Well,
just,
passion is clear, and also you've said it many times this morning, is that you understand the importance of building relationships
yeah,
and the importance of being engaged in the community, and as much as you share time with your family,
yeah,
and family's number one,
yeah.
your job is almost all part of that. That's
Yeah.
kind of like your extended family is
Yeah.
here, and
Well, and.
That's what
and-
makes a big
and, you know,
difference.
And I got 4 people here who, of course, I reflected on, but I put you in with a whole nother broad group of people. Because that's where I got my attitudes from. You know, but I think they had something to do with me, but working, like you just said, here, working with these people in the field.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't be in Parks and Recreation and be negative, right?
Oh.
You
You
wouldn't, you wouldn't have,
last.
you couldn't, you wouldn't survive because you can't be negative and be, but we do.
So, well, I think the difference I see in people in our field, and they've seen this in psychological studies and that too,
Yeah.
is it's not about salary as much as it's about feeling the reward of the service. You know, you get back more than you receive, or you receive more than you get back. What am I trying to say?
But unfortunately, in this day and age, and you just said it, and I've been experiencing it myself, having been on the board, it is about salary.
Yes, it's more about what you can get out of it, not what you can prepare.
And that's,
Yeah.
that is something,
And I think that's a lot of why you don't see people at the conferences
Yeah.
anyway. You used to what,
And how do
5,000
we-
people
how
at
do
a
we-
conference, now we get maybe 1,500.
yeah, how do you get, you know, you sit on a board and you have to deal with unions and all of that stuff now today. And just the attitude of people, that their focus is on what's my next salary gonna be.
Yeah, it's about having a job, not about having,
Yeah, no, not that,
Career.
not that we shouldn't be paid,
oh, absolutely.
you know, compensated for what we do and stuff like that, but it shouldn't, you know, like you said, it shouldn't be necessarily paramount. You wanna get a decent salary, you gotta be fair to your family then.
Right, oh, yeah, absolutely, so,
Yeah.
anyway. Any closing comments?
No, I don't. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with you guys, because I know you guys. And it's been terrific for me.
Been good for us too.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
It's a feel-good moment.
yeah, it's just been, so, if we wrap this all up,